Welcome people to a new video. Neil here. In this video we are killing two birds with the same stone. We are looking at two different concepts that blend beautiful into each other. The first concept is moving and working in confined and smaller spaces. And the second concept is a concept of finding more connectivity and fluidity in motion, which in return also helps us moving better in confined spaces. If you would come here for a second, let's look at a very nice way of locomoting through a small space. If, for example, this is our space from above, which is rather small, then walking through the space, we can either walk in straight lines, and whenever we hit a border, we can create a sharp turn and walk into a different direction and basically walk through the space in this fashion, right? A different approach, and the one that I will also propose in this video, is basically instead of finding these sharp turns by moving only in straight lines, I want you to focus or imagine that whenever you hit a boundary, the borders, you can curve. And then whenever you have space, you can once again create a straight line, travel as far as possible, and then whenever you hit something, you can curve. So in the end, the motions that we will be doing are curved mixed with straight lines all the time. So if I would do this then through the space, it would look something like this. I walk through the space, and this is also something that I would propose you to do before starting with the whole, with both of them concepts, is finding your space that you have. For now, let's imagine I only have those 4 mats or 4 square meters. I walk through the space, and whenever I hit the boundaries of the space, I curve and go into a different direction. And by doing this, I already create a mental map in my brain for where I can move and where I can't move. As I said before, when you have quite a bit of distance, you can also walk and travel in a straight line, but then whenever you face a border, you curve. And obviously you can also do this in even smaller spaces, much harder though, or in bigger spaces like the whole one that I'm using right here. Alright, let's look at the first concept, which we already looked at right now in the introduction, which is basically redirecting our path of motion, our movement into another direction using curves. So once again, as a reminder, before we looked at simple walking patterns and how we can redirect ourselves every time we hit a border. Now we can also try to do this in a more dynamic way, so really kind of stepping through the space, dancing through the space, creating straight lines. And whenever we hit a border, we then go to another direction. Maybe as a reference, as a funny reference, back in the days when you would work on a computer and then there is a black screen, the Windows logo would basically every time it hit a wall redirect into another movement. So this is my imagination right now, what I'm doing. I'm bouncing off the borders and I'm going into a different direction. Now, from here, we can then also change levels, one step down, and do exactly the same thing in a crawling pattern. So, crawling in an open form through the space. Whenever I hit a border, a boundary, I change directions, and I redirect my motion to go into another direction. You can already also integrate switches from the standing level back down into the crawling level, and in this fashion map the space that you're using. And once again, remember, if you only have 4 square meters or even smaller, you can do exactly the same thing, constantly redirecting your motion, switching between layers. If you want to take it one step further, you can also try to do exactly the same thing, completely moving on the floor. So, whenever you hit a boundary, redirect and go to another direction. Very importantly, neither in the standing leg nor in the locomotive layer nor in the floor layer you have to use fixed patterns or moves. You can work in a very free-form manner and simply find a very nice and interesting path through this maze basically. If you feel comfortable and if you feel ready, you can then try to apply some movements into your exploration. Obviously, depending how small the space is, some moves simply won't work, so you have to try to find interesting, maybe smaller, more condensed variations. But as per usual, when we are faced with limitations, creativity has really a nice chance to kick in, and we come up with very interesting solutions. So exactly the same thing. In the standing layer, you could, for example, introduce cartwheels whenever you hit the boundaries, redirect, find nice inversions. Exactly the same thing in the crawling layer. If you want to use acrobatics, you can definitely also go for a very scaled down version. Same thing across the floor. Whenever you hit the boundary, redirect. And go into a different direction. Now, already in this first concept, what I highly recommend for you to do is try to follow the path of the momentum that you have created from the start. Meaning, if I would go here and make a turn, I would constantly follow the momentum. Opposing to, I come here and then go back again. This is obviously also possible and could be interesting, but for me personally, I really like to explore ways of, from here, instead of backing up again, finding a solution to continue even though I'm in a smaller space. I'm here, I'm finding a solution, and I go.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to keep your eyes open for part 2 of this video. Chances are pretty high that by the point you're watching this, part 2 is already out there. It will be linked in the description of this video, so make sure to watch part 2 where we look at how to make the movement in small spaces even more continuous and fluid. Also, if you're interested in learning fixed patterns and also diving deeper into my work around the topic of floor communication, acrobatics, which I call Finding Flow, please make sure to visit my website and watch and read through my online offers, reaching from one-to-one online support, but also fixed Finding Flow online courses. That's it for now. Enjoy the practice. Talk soon.